The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Hi, welcome to Meet the Author. Today I'm with Anne Samson, and she is the author of Abba House and Me, Prayer Changes Everything. And my name is Christine Saxe. Anne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm a new author. I just published this last year, so this is an exciting new road for me, and I'm really loving it. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I work for the state, and I have a full-time job, so I've been writing on the side. And I wrote this book because of a long-time experience that I had with Abba House of Prayer.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So your experience was an excellent experience. You mentioned that you met a sister, Libby Hoy. Am I saying it right?
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about her and your experience at Abba House?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, Sister Libby was my first spiritual director. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, very spiritual, very involved in the Ecumenical Movement in Albany. And she ran this house of prayer with Sister Mary Jen Smith for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, over on Western Avenue. And it looks just like a house, so nobody even knew, it was like a house of prayer. It was this tiny little house tucked away, and thousands of people came through that house and benefited from the programs that they had there. So
now, how did you find out about Abba House, and what was your first experience there?
So I was looking for a spiritual director. I went to Spring Enrichment. I go there every spring at College of St. Rose because I'm a catechist.
Okay.
So I go to learn a couple things, pick up a few classes, and I took this class about centering prayer. And I had this experience in centering prayer that was really rich and deep and very moving.
Really?
Yeah, it was really lovely.
Can you describe it? What happened?
It was interesting. It was just, they lead you in a guided meditation,
okay,
right? So you say, you go to your heart space and blah, 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 and, and then rest comfortably and know that you're loved and just go into that place.
Okay.
And I went into this really beautiful, blissful place.
Wow.
And I said, wow, I've never experienced this place before. This is fantastic. And it was 20 minutes. It was a 2-hour class. So I came out of the class, or at the end of the class, the sister who had been leading it said, if you found that to be a positive experience, if that gave you a taste of something that you'd like to have again, you should look for a spiritual director. I said, well, what's a spiritual director?
Right.
So I opened the yellow pages.
Spiritual director.
Couldn't find anything under spiritual director, so I looked under prayer, and there's a house of prayer. Okay, I'll give it a shot. So I called. I got Sister Libby on the phone, and I said, I just had this experience with centering prayer, and they said I should try to find a spiritual director. So she said, oh, I think I can do that.
Oh, that's great.
So I made an appointment, and I went over and saw her, and that was the start of it.
And you've spent time at Abba House in your book. Tell us about how that works out, and can anyone do this?
Well, unfortunately, Abba House isn't open anymore.
It's not.
Yeah, it closed. But there's other centers. There's other places that you can go, retreat houses where you can spend time like that. But Abba House was really, I went there in the last 10 years that it was open. I was at the tail end of its existence in Albany. But I would go and meet with Sister Libby and have my talks with her. And then when I came to a time in my life where I needed a place to get away and I needed some quiet, I found that I could go there and spend the night, have prayer with them, go to their programs that they were offering during the day. And it was just like a real quiet, restful place for me to be and to pray.
And I think that our society, we're so busy and there's so much so fast with technology that we just don't get that quiet time.
It's true.
And so that was most beneficial to you.
It was.
And were you able to have those spiritual experiences there again?
Yes, yeah, it was really beautiful. It was lovely. I found that my mind was so busy because I was going through some things in my family. My son, I talk about it in the book. I have an older son who has some mental health issues. And it was a very stressful time for our family. So I really needed to just detach and to get quiet and to find peace. And I could do that at Abba House.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And Sister Libby, she was kind of tough on you at times.
She
right?
was. She was tough on me, yeah.
And she is no longer with us, but can you tell us a little bit more about how she guided you and helped you through your struggles?
Yeah, Sister Libby was really an interesting person. You know, she opened that house when she was 55 years old.
Wow.
So, and then she ran it with Sister Mary Jen for 30 years. They were just an amazing couple. They were fantastic. They used to go to marriage encounters together.
Did they really?
They called themselves the odd couple.
Now, Sister Mary Jen was different than Sister Libby. Can you describe her personality?
Yes, Sister Mary Jen was very energetic, very effervescent, she was a doer.
Okay.
Whereas Sister Libby was a thinker.
Okay.
You know, and they were both wonderful prayers. You know, they prayed very well together. They worked very well together. They did many, many, many Bible studies, both at Abba House and at different parishes all around the Capital District.
Wow.
So they were busy. They did a lot.
That's a huge loss that they're both gone. And
It
and in the
is.
beginning of the book, you describe going to Sister Libby's funeral services, and it was such a moving part of the book. And it was so well written, I have to say.
Well, thank you.
Really, I
Thank
did
you.
enjoy reading the book. So tell me also, how did Abba House help you with your personal struggles at home and help you to get through the difficulties you were experiencing?
Right. So what I found was I needed that prayer. I needed that deep prayer because that centering prayer was, it's meditation, basically.
I personally have never done it, but
It's wonderful.
And there's probably a lot of people out there that have not, because you're just so busy with your life, I think.
Right.
But-
It's a practice, you know, and that's the thing. You need a director. You need somebody to help you, to encourage you to keep trying.
Right.
Because you get the fruits from the practice when you do it on a regular basis. So if you do it every single day, most spiritual directors recommend twice a day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, but I found that I couldn't do that. I just did it 20 minutes in the morning. And it really, really helps quiet your mind. And there's many, many studies that show that meditation on a regular basis helps us think better, helps us process our thoughts better, helps us be more efficient, effective in our daily lives. It just makes our...
Have you found that?
I have.
That's wonderful.
I have. Because when I don't do it, I'm a mess.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you have a certain focus, or what did she teach you? Do you just sit quietly, or how do you do this?
Right.
For someone that has never done it.
Yeah, the centering prayer, what I learned in this little workshop and what Sister Libby reinforced is really Jesus-centered prayer, because I'm a Christian, so for me, Jesus-centered prayer works for me.
Right.
If you're not a Christian, there's other ways to do it with a mantra, you know,
Right.
there's like the transcendental meditation. Most spiritual practices have some element of meditation. But for the centering prayer, and there's some very good writers that have written on this. Basil Pennington is one of the ones who's written. Thomas Merton touched on it as well. So there's some very good books out there about centering prayer. But basically, it's just like sitting down, focusing on the love of God, letting yourself grab a prayer word is usually helpful. You know, mine was usually Lord. That just worked for me, you know. And then just kind of settling in and focusing on that word, focusing on your breath, focusing on just nothing.
Nothing, yes.
You know,
Nothing.
which is really hard.
It is hard because we are all so busy.
It is.
You know, trying to be super mom, trying to be great in your career,
Yep.
trying to do all that.
Exactly.
So, this book also talks about reasons that people go to Abba House and the whole ecumenical movement too. So tell me about that ecumenical movement, which is really interesting, and how Sister Libby and Sister Jen got other religions involved.
Yeah, they did.
There were rabbis, I read, and it was so interesting, so wonderful.
Yeah, it really was. Sister Libby was really ahead of her time. You know, she was a teacher. She's a member. Both of the sisters were members of the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which are also known as the Kenwood nuns.
Yes.
Because they were in the Kenwood convent down on North Pearl Street. And she was a teacher down in New York City, in Harlem. And she was kind of ahead of her times because she, back in the 50s and the 60s, would take her students to mosques and to temples, and you have a Catholic background, right?
I do, but
Right.
I just think it's so interesting, all the other religions, and I have friends in many different religions.
Right.
And taking bits and pieces, and
Right.
we all worship the same.
The same God, exactly.
God.
Yeah. Well, what was so interesting is that before Vatican II in the 1960s, the Catholic Church was very closed to other faiths. They didn't encourage people to go to other churches. I know my mother would talk about
That's
how,
true.
right? Remember?
Yes.
My mother would say, we couldn't go to the Protestant church. We couldn't go to the Jewish temple. It was unheard of. It was really a taboo, kind of.
Right, absolutely.
But Sister Libby was ahead of her time. She would bring her students to those things. So then when she opened Abba House in the early 1970s, she was very interested in ecumenism. So she started with other Christian faiths and then eventually expanded to other faith traditions. So she would have an interfaith meeting once a year where she would invite the Buddhists and the Hindus and the Jewish, someone from the Jewish faith. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Were you involved in some of those ecumenical?
Just at the tail end.
At the tail end.
Yeah, I really didn't get too involved. But I did interview one of the gentlemen, Bala, who was a Hindu, and he was, talking about how wonderful Sister Libby and Sister Mary Jen were. And there's a couple testimonials in the book from some of the other
And there's a
faith
picture of a
traditions.
family, I think.
That's Bala's family.
Bala's family
Yeah,
that is in
yeah.
the book. And it's so interesting that she welcomed everyone. She must have been such a warm and loving soul, her and Mary Jen, it sounds like, from the book.
Yes.
And the book was so interesting, too. And you wrote it, you would talk about Abba House, then you would talk about your house.
Right.
And what was going on at your home.
Right.
And then Abba House, and then your home. Your chapters would go back and forth. I thought that was very interesting. And how did you come about that?
Yeah, that's interesting because what happened was, I wanted to write.
Right.
And I had left teaching. I was a special ed teacher for about 7 or 8 years. And I went back to work for the state, and I prayed, and I said, God, I want to write. I want to do something in your service. I want to use this gift that you gave me. And what I got in prayer was write about Sister Libby. So I started writing about Sister Libby, and the things that I learned were just so interesting. The research that I would do. I had in the back of the book, I have all these conversations with people where I called and interviewed all these wonderful people. The timing was perfect because they were still alive.
Right, and you had to get work quickly.
Yeah, I had to. It was the perfect timing. So I had all these wonderful conversations with all these wonderful people, and then I started writing this history of Abba House. And then I realized that at the time that I was going to Abba House, I was going through so much, with my family. So I started writing that too. And I did that separately. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and I said, I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. I'm just writing all these things down. She said, just get it all down. Just get it all down and see. You need to write it, obviously. So then when I finished, I had this whole story of Abba House with all this documentation, like a researched story. And then I had the story of my house. And it was like 2 houses. And it kind of started to make sense that I could weave them together and show how my house and my life intercepted with this wonderful house and this wonderful mission that they had.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The two. I really enjoyed reading it. And it will be in our library, Colonie Library, Abba House and Me, Prayer Changes Everything. Where else can you buy this book?
You can buy it locally at the Book House.
At the Book House.
That's right. And you can also buy it as an e-book online. And through Amazon.
And through Amazon. That's awesome. Because I do recommend it. It was wonderful. I mean, and in the beginning of the book, you said you were talking to someone and they said they didn't have a prayer life.
Yeah.
And then how you became more prayerful and more spiritual through your guidance. And how has this changed your life?
Well, I love that how in the beginning, the whole prayer life. Yeah, it spoke. I was volunteering at my church, and I went to this gathering, and somebody said, "Is there something wrong with my prayer life?" And I said, I don't have one of those.
Can I get one?
Yeah, I need to get one of those. And that's when I started paying attention, And I went to the centering prayer thing. And then I was really focused on trying to find a prayer life because it sounded like a wonderful thing to have,
Yeah.
So Sister Libby helped me by when I would get discouraged with the meditation, with the
And
centering
was it
prayer.
frustrating at first?
Oh, it was so frustrating. I'll tell you, and everybody, and I try to help other people too who are trying to learn how to meditate, and they tell me, I can't slow my brain down. I just can't get my brain to stop. And I say to them, relax, that's normal. That's the way that God made us. He made us to have busy, active, wonderful brains, to think and to do and to achieve all these fabulous things. We're supposed to be like that,
Right.
So don't get frustrated with yourself when you sit down and you can't get your brain to turn off. But it's wonderful to have someone to help you that you can
Yes.
go and talk to about this.
That is wonderful. And
Yeah.
at the local churches, are there spiritual guides you
There
can find?
are
If
spiritual
you're
directors.
interested in that same kind of thing.
Yeah, you can ask your pastor, ask your priest, ask whoever is in your your ministry. Say, I need some help with this, and there's people that can help you with that.
That's wonderful. And you also talk about your husband in the book and how supportive and
I
wonderful
do,
he is.
I do talk about my wonderful husband, and I had someone tell me once that the book was really about him. It wasn't about Abba House or Sister Libby or anything else. But I really believe that the prayer kept our family together.
During the difficult time.
Yeah, because difficult times when you find yourself so stressed by illness, whether it's physical, mental, or illness, or circumstances. Some people just come into some circumstances that are very difficult. It's hard. It either brings a family closer together or it splits a family up. And we found, with the help of a lot of professionals, we had a lot of professional help. I mean, I said I used to exhaust the mental health community with the things that we did. We had individual counselors, family counselors, all kinds of help. And prayer life, a strong prayer life. We prayed together, we went to church together. I think that's what really kept us together.
And that is wonderful because, like you said, so many families, that stress would cause the end of the relationships. About your struggles with your son, a little bit about what you experienced.
Right. So my son was 12 years old when things started to kind of fall apart with him.
Yeah.
Up until that time, he'd been a quiet kid, not a lot of friends, kind of quiet, low-key. But when he got to adolescence, which is when things change a lot for young people, he started to get really angry and very different.
Yeah.
Just really different,
He knew there was something that wasn't right.
Yeah, there was something that wasn't right. So I needed to go to the mental health professionals. I asked for a lot of help.
And that's strenuous, too, because a lot of times you're probably not getting the help that you really want.
Right. Particularly at the schools. The schools didn't know what to do with them. So it was, we hit kind of a roadblock there.
Yeah.
So I had to just keep asking and asking and asking.
Oh, and you also talk about how you changed careers.
I did,
and how
yeah.
Sister Libby helped you to kind of have this epiphany that you needed to do something else.
I did, yeah.
And how old were you, and how did that all come about? Because I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking, oh, my job, I've been doing it for so long, and,
right, yeah.
and I need a change. And how did that all work out for you?
Yeah, I was feeling really frustrated. I was working for the state. I mean, I had a wonderful job, and I was allowed to work part-time so that I could raise my kids and spend some time with them. So I had wonderful benefits. I worked with fantastic people, but I felt like there was a piece of me that wasn't being used. So I wanted to do something different. So I was spending time with Sister Libby. I was spending time at Abba House, and I remember I was at a Bible study one day, and she knew that I was a catechist, which is a religious education teacher. And we were in a class, and I spoke about something, and she said, "Listen to Anne, she's an educator." And I said, "Ooh, I'm an educator."
and you never knew.
I never knew. Who knew? And that resonated with me. And I said, well, maybe I should look into teaching. Maybe that would be something that I could do. So I started looking into it, and the way just kind of opened. When you take one step and things open, and take another step and another door opens, you feel like that's the way that you should be going,
Yeah.
So she supported me through that. And I did go back to school, and I got my master's degree in special education, and I left the state in 2000, and I taught for 7 years.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how was your experience teaching?
It was good. It was
Yeah.
good. It was really good. I brought, I was, as a special ed teacher, I brought my experience as the mother of a person with special needs.
So you had great empathy for others that were suffering with their children also.
I did, yeah, and a lot of patience. And I think, I had that mom thing going on with the kids, so they were like, receptive to me.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that was good. And it's interesting because right at the time when Sister Libby passed, I was thinking, I think I'm at the end of the road here. I think I need to do something else. And when she passed is when I went back to the state.
Right.
And so I've been doing that.
And they probably needed you there.
I got 2 promotions in 2 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was kind of like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be here too, and now I'm getting ready to move away from that and do something different. So.
Did you hear the voice of God through that meditation that kind of told you where you needed to go, or was it more of just a nudge?
Yeah, it's interesting how you get guided and directed. It's like an inner knowing.
Yes.
And as you spend more time in prayer and as you develop your prayer life, which is wonderful to have,
Yes.
you start to be more attentive to those little nudges.
Those little voices.
Those little voices and those little circumstances and those things that happen that you think are coincidences, but they're really God incidences.
There really are no coincidences. If anything, in my life, I believe that we all end up in a certain place at a certain time.
That's
and
true.
We are guided to do certain things. And
That's right.
So, you probably did some wonderful things in your teaching, and the state needed you back, and so it all works out.
Yeah.
But your book was so wonderful. And,
Thank you.
And we want to tell everyone that Abba House and Me, you can get it at the Colonie Town Library shortly. We'll be processing it, and it'll be out in the library. You can take it out. And it's been so nice talking with you.
Oh, nice talking to you
And
too,
is there
Chris.
anything else you wanted to add?
Well, my next thing I'm looking to do is energetic healing. So,
Are you going to be doing workshops on that?
Yes, I am. I'm going to be teaching Reiki at the Dominican Spiritual Life Center, and hopefully I'm going to be practicing myself in the near future. So
That's
I'm
wonderful.
really excited about that too.
And you did teach at Abba House some workshops.
did.
What workshops did you cover there?
I did. I covered just family life. I can't remember the exact names of them. One of them was about family life.
Oh, good.
Just like loving the family, listening to God, staying on the spiritual path, spirituality of everyday life.
Oh, that's nice.
Because life is very spiritual. We tend to sometimes put our spiritual life in this box over here and our work life in this box over here, but we need to integrate all those things together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we will look for you in your Reiki classes.
Yeah, awesome.
And thank you so much for joining us with Meet the Author, and look for Abba House and Me. Prayer changes everything.